My name is Owen Dwyer. I'm a partner here at Irish Pensions and Finance, and this is my colleague Sarah Connolly, our marketing manager. Normally at this time of year, myself and Sarah would be organising a retirement seminar for our retiring public sector clients. But obviously we can't do that this year because of the COVID situation. So instead, we thought we'd make a retirement video for you, or to be more precise, 3 retirement videos. One to cover the period leading up to retirement, one to cover what you'll be facing at retirement, and another to look at the issues that you'll have in retirement.
So these videos will last for 10 to 15 minutes, and they include interviews that we've done with a guard, with a doctor, a solicitor, accountant, as well as a retired public sector employee who will give a little bit of insight into how she transitioned into retirement. So all these are professionals who we felt would have important and relevant information for you.
And it's important to stress that the information you'll hear during these interviews is by necessity general information. So we would recommend that you don't take any action based on what you hear in the interviews, but that you seek advice from either these professionals or other professionals for your own particular case. And just to point out as well that Irish Pensions and Finance offer a comprehensive retirement service which covers a lot of these issues anyway. And we'll give you our contact details as we go along so that you can book in with us if that's what you want to do.
And the professionals that you'll see now in the video are also delighted to accept a phone call if you want to follow up with them with any questions further to these videos and the interviews you're about to hear. We'll also be giving our contact information if you'd like to get in touch with us, and we'd be delighted to provide a comprehensive information pack. So if you want to get in touch, you can contact myself at sarah.connolly@ipf.ie, and you'll see my email scrolling across the screen now.
So right, let's get started with our own Claire Hanrahan, who's my business partner, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about the retirement service we offer, as well as give you a brief outline of how your main superannuation scheme works.
In our experience, if we can speak to our clients at 5 years to retirement, that is ideal. If they engage with us at that stage, they will have more options, okay, rather than leaving it to the last minute, and then those options might be more limited. This meeting is really important. I suppose from our point of view, what we really want to do is sit down with the client, and if they have a spouse, we love the spouse to be there. And even if they don't have a spouse, sometimes it's good just to bring along even a trusted friend. And we really need to listen and find out what the client wants. From there, working with the client, we can establish what options they're going to have. Firstly, I suppose we'll look at, is there any gaps in their tax-free lump sum? Okay, because you only get one gratuity,
Sure.
when you retire. So let's make sure we miss nothing. So we'll be asking questions like, what's your service? Did you have any earnings that were taxable but not pensionable? Okay. So there are things like maybe overtime,
Sure.
on call. So a lot of our clients love that they can actually build a gratuity to, represent those earnings.
Okay.
Other things we can look at, is using an inflation factor. So you've only got one shot at it. So
Sure.
It's about making the best of it. If a client has all 40 years service and there's no opportunity to increase the lump sum, there is the opportunity to build it's called an approved retirement fund. I think 1,500 of our clients that have retired have ARFs.
Okay.
And what they love about them is, number one, it's a pot of money, it's in their name, and they're in control of it. They can choose if they might take between 4 to 15% of it each year. They choose the frequency. So when we're sitting down, they'll say, look, do you want it monthly, quarterly, half yearly, yearly? It's earning interest-free dirt tax, which is really, really good because it's still a pension vehicle. The ideal scenario is the client would have enjoyed 40% tax relief on the way in.
Sure.
And then it's treated as income on the way out, but hopefully at a lower rate.
So the advice will repeat itself a lot through the decades because unfortunately people think doctors are very boring and we keep saying the same things. You have to lose weight, don't smoke, don't drink. But because these are the facts, the statistics
Sure.
tell us that the first leading cause of death is cardiovascular disease.
Sure.
And after cardiovascular disease you have cancer. And the risk factors for that are obesity, smoking, over drinking. So we are boring, but that's because the statistics keep
Sure.
telling us that people do ignore the advice and keep making the same mistake. For both men and women, the 50s are a very important part of your life because
Sure.
it's when you build the foundation of what type of older person you want to be.
Okay.
You still have time to change things. Ideally, we would have loved you to have had a healthy lifestyle all your life. But if you make mistakes in your 50s, you have time to change things. It's too late if you wait until you're 60 or 70.
Okay.
So the 50s are very important is when you build the foundation and you make the basis for the type of elderly person you want to be. You, first of all, if you are making mistakes, you need to stop right now. So if you're smoking, forget about it, you need to stop.
Sure.
If you're drinking too much, you need to cut it right down. And you really need to focus on your weight.
Okay.
And this is a very hard time for people in weight management, especially for women when menopause hit, because your metabolism slows down a little bit. To people that maybe were doing quite well before putting on a little bit of belly. Now, a little bit of belly is not the end of the world, but we're really talking about people who do have a too high BMI and who are in the obesity range. Your BMI ideally should be below 25. We don't really panic if people are 26, 27, even 28 when you're in your 50s,
Sure.
but you don't want to go over 30. And then on top of that, the other thing you should do is measure your abdominal circumference, because sometimes if you put your weight all central in the middle, you are a little bit more high risk
Sure.
of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. So these two numbers are enough to see where you are.
Probate is a very important area of law, particularly retirees. It's something they should strongly consider. We would always advise people to make a will. The first step that I would advise people to do is to prepare a list of their assets and a list of the people they wish to leave those assets to. Now, that might seem like a very basic step, but it can sometimes prove tricky for people to do that. So I just encourage them to take a little bit of time in preparing that list. The second thing they should do is prepare a list of where those assets are located. For example, the bank or the account number or the branch address. It's very important that the solicitor knows where to locate these assets. The third thing to need to do is appoint an executor. Every will needs an executor. And an executor is the legal term given to a person that's entrusted with the legal rights and obligations to administer the estate in accordance with the will. The fourth thing that I would advise people to do is to ensure that the will is clearly drafted. You don't want a situation to arise whereby a gift to one beneficiary fails or one beneficiary gets too much. So the important point is that you should be able to read the will and you should be able to understand it yourself. And
Sure.
if it's not clear to you, the chances are it won't be
Sure.
clear to somebody else. So sit down with your solicitor and just make sure it's clearly drafted.
Just having a look at, what we would call natural surveillance, whether trees and shrubs, the whole premises would be well maintained. If they had gates, they're closable, or maybe they have electric gates. Lights that work, perhaps an alarm system, CCTV, and even good physical security on good windows and good doors. All gives the impression that the house is good and safe and secure. And if you're coming to a certain age, it would be important to get involved in some activity, where they're communicating with the community there on a regular basis. So then people know that they're living there, they're on their own, they're keeping an eye out for them, unknown to them. Yeah. But what an awful lot of people are doing there now is that with the alarm systems, they're now connecting the alarm system to the garage. So now that the garage is alarmed during the course of the night. People are now locking up doors, locking up windows in the garages, because the amount of property they have in the garages, as you know, is very, very expensive. But we're also encouraging people to mark their property in the garages using their air code. Items such as typically in the garages would be bikes, lawnmowers, tools, trailers, and we just engrave the air code right through them, right across the board. Yeah. What we would hope then, it just makes it difficult for somebody to sell somebody's property with the air code on it. There's 5 or 6 different things there which will make a huge difference to them while they're in their own home.
Depending on their age, I think people are retiring younger. But as they reach the age of 65, there's obviously the age tax credit, which is €245 or €490, depending on whether they're married or single. People at that age are still, their parents are still alive possibly, and they're looking at either employing a carer, or their parents are in a nursing home, or they need full-time care. There's generous tax relief for employing a carer or for nursing home fees of 40%. And then people at that age also have children who are buying houses. So they should be looking into things like the first time buyers tax incentive scheme, which was upgraded recently. They may have children going to college, so they should be looking at claiming tax relief on the tuition fees. There is a covenant there. There is a covenant facility there to give money to people who are over 65, so that could be their parents or their spouses or whoever. And sometimes I find that people, as they're getting towards retirement age, their families have moved out, they're in bigger houses. There is the option of renting a room within the house, and there's a rent room with a fair 14 grand a year.
Okay.
So anybody getting close to retirement, I'd be definitely looking at what their pension entitlement is when they retire,
Right.
what their tax-free lump sum is likely to be, and whether they should be actually considering making an ABC contribution.
I was a little bit apprehensive, as you would be going into an unknown territory. A couple of things that crossed my mind were, because I was very busy in work and we also had to do a lot of overtime,
Sure.
I was wondering, would I be bored? Would I be lonely? Would I miss the camaraderie of my friends at work? And some of my colleagues had already retired, so they were telling me how great it was.
Sure.
But I still was a little apprehensive. I was worried about money. Would I have enough money to live comfortably? And I had this idea in my head, I wanted to make sure I could be warm in the winter.
Okay.
I was terrified of being cold and not affording to turn on the heat all day.
Okay.
That kind of thing was getting in on me. So I was a little apprehensive on a few fronts. Like that, I'm a great believer in preparing. And I had gone to several of the retirement seminars, and also St. James's Hospital ran a seminar every year. So for the last 2 or 3 years before I retired, I made sure I went to all those seminars. And I made contacts there, I took notes, I went and explored further if I had a question. So to be honest with you, I felt I was very prepared for it, like both financially and socially well prepared for it. And I would advise anyone do lots of preparation. If your workplace offers you a retirement seminar, go to it. Ask people who have retired, what did they find? Particularly financially, I had really done my finances very well.
Sure.
I had made sure that I had enough money. I had, got extra AVCs over the years and had started early so they wouldn't cost me too much. And then as I came nearer the time, I made sure that my AVCs were only invested in secure funds.
Brilliant.
Because I would be a very cautious person
Sure,
there.
sure.
So I was very happy with that end of things.
Sure.
And I have to say St. James's Hospital were very easy to deal with. I didn't really have a hurdle that I couldn't manage.
Well, I think one of the most important things is to create a plan, and very important to sit down with a financial advisor that can try and tease out and establish what your financial goals are and over what sort of time frame that you're looking to potentially invest and what sort of return you might need to achieve those goals. And you would certainly look at things like what's your attitude to risk. So for instance, if you saw equity markets being particularly volatile and it was having an impact on your day-to-day life, well then maybe you're taking too much risk. So I think once again, talking to your financial advisor will certainly help you establish what your risk levels are. And then the financial advisor can help you then decide what your asset allocation might be in terms of how much you might invest in maybe equities, bonds, property and cash. And then once you've decided what your asset allocation is, you then go to the next step, which is to identify maybe some funds that might help you achieve your investment objective. Well, I think historically a lot of people considered retirement an actual date, and they had a pre-retirement investment plan.
Right.
Then at retirement, they had a decision to make, and then they had a post-retirement decision to make. And that has really changed over the last 10 to 15 years, whereby the retirement date is seen more just as a date and your plan doesn't change too dramatically as you move through that date. I think there again, that's where a financial advisor can certainly help you.
Just to say from the start that everyone's retirement will be different, because everyone's job is different and everyone's circumstances and everyone's personality will be different. People who plan for retirement in whatever way incur more positive psychological well-being. In other words, they're happier or they're better able to deal with problems that come along compared to people who don't. The work that you guys do in the financial plan seems to be what most people do, but it has a positive effect because finance is a very important resource. A way of looking at your whole well-being, if you want to see it all as resources, finance is one and has an effect on others, and others could be things like your cognitive resources, and there's emotional resources that will take a hit naturally. There's your social resources, there's another, most people take a hit there. I suppose what I'd encourage then is to carry that forward and imagine other things. How are you going to feel?
Right.
Who are you going to be?
Yes.
How are you going to see yourself? Who are you going to be with?
Mm-hmm.
Who would you like to be with? What would you like to do? Again, and how will you feel? So now they're different, and to kind of write it down, you know, make some decisions around it, or really rather than just, sure, that would be grand.
So I hope you found that helpful and informative. Our next video will be released on Tuesday the 22nd of September at 7:30, and that will focus on any issues that you might find at retirement. Well, then the following week at the same time, we'll have another video which is to do with issues after retirement. So I'll also leave you with the contact information of all our speakers if you'd like to follow up with any of them. And also don't forget to pop us an email, sarah.connolly@ipf.ie, if you would like to have a look at our information pack, and we can get that out to you. So we look forward to seeing you next week.